teacher for 20 years in Santa Barbara, and I have taught public school mostly and some private school last year. I'm also a United States Air Force veteran, so I served during 9/11 and during Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. And I love kids, and I'm a mom, and I've just watched what's gone on in Santa Barbara, and I always say Santa Barbara is like a ground zero for some of this stuff. I think San Francisco and LA and San Diego or some other places, but what's unique about Santa Barbara is we have over 2,000 nonprofits in Santa Barbara, and they fund a lot of this stuff. And so I'm going to explain a little bit about that, how it all kind of goes down. But I want to start with some positive news first. So I ran for superintendent of schools last year. I also ran for Goleta Union School Board. And when I put my name in the hat to run for superintendent of schools, the first thing they did was sue me to get my name off the ballot. And I had a really amazing attorney, John Tyne III, down in Santa Barbara, step up and represent me and win the lawsuit. And we didn't just win my lawsuit, but we won a lawsuit up in Tuolumne County as well, because they were doing something similar to somebody up there that wanted to run. And he hired my attorney, and he sued his county, and he got his name on the ballot, and he got elected up in Tuolumne County, where there's more Republicans. So we did get a superintendent in the state of California. There's 58 superintendents for every county in California, and I believe it is where they are robbing the American people is through the schools. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But it's a very important role. It's a very powerful position. The superintendent of schools has oversight of millions of dollars that no board even has to sign off on. She gets to approve it. One person gets to approve millions of dollars, and it's called LCAP funds, and they're using those funds. It's supposed to go for socioeconomically disadvantaged, homeless, and English language learners, and that's a lot of the funds that they're using to give it back to the politicians, and round it goes. So while it seems like it was very nondescript because nobody had run for the position for 40 years, which is why they sued me when I ran. We knew we were over the target because, why would you bring a lawsuit against an educator? But they did. So it's a very powerful position, and it's right up there with, sheriff. We have the superintendent of schools, we have the sheriff, and we have the DA. All three are elected positions. And they have found a way to, make like a vacuum and suck the money out of cities through the superintendent of schools position. So it's very powerful. And so since then, they asked me on election night. I didn't win, but I got a third of the vote for somebody who had never been involved in politics in their life. But they said, "Would you like to say anything to your competitor?" I'm all, "Her job will never be the same," because we brought a huge spotlight. And I even heard, I know people that work at the county education office, they're like, "She is not the same person. She is hiring people like crazy." So we're making her do her job. So every time somebody talks about what others are doing, we're always taking back our land. We have to remember that our land was taken from us over the course of 40 years. It's going to take time to take it back. But every time we go to a school board meeting and we wake people up, every time somebody else comes to the table, we're taking back our land. And so we have to kind of zoom out. We have to remember that all the little things that we do matter, and they make a difference. And every time there's a win somewhere else, like for example in Temecula and Chino Hills about 2 weeks ago, the Temecula board voted to not have CRT in the schools, and they refused, and Gavin Newsom was going to fine them with $1.5 million fines for not accepting it. But it's still a win. It still shows if he's going to take those steps to come down on them, it must matter what they're doing. And right now, the superintendent of public instruction over the state of California, by the way, that's where the lawsuit came from. It came straight from Sacramento. Sacramento did not want me challenging Susan Salcido because the County Office of Education is paying for political consultation to Sacramento, $300,000 over the last however many years. So they, we've discovered what's going on. And so the lawsuit came from there. But right now, Tony Thurmond is the superintendent of public instruction over the state of California. And there was, in Chino Hills, there's a school board member down there that got elected this last year, and he stepped up to the podium. He drove down to their school board meeting. For him to do that, he was threatened by this woman, and she put him in his place and told him to sit down and shut up. So, I mean, it was really fun to watch, but Tony Thurmond is putting his name in the hat to run for governor, and then our governor is going to put his name in the hat to run for president. So as California goes, so will go the rest of the nation, and I think that's their plan. I mean, I don't know, but it makes sense because this is a big pot of money, and they get to give it to their friends. So how it kind of works is there's consultants, and there's nonprofits, and there's politicians, and they're all in it together. If you know who Laura Capps is, here in Santa Barbara, she's a consultant, and she's a politician, and she knows all the nonprofits, and she brings them in, and they get the money, federal money, billions of dollars of federal money. They get nonprofit money. It goes to consultants. If you look at all of the former superintendents in Santa Barbara Unified, they're consultants. Guess what? The former superintendent in Santa Ynez, in Santa Ynez they needed a principal. So they hired a consultant firm. It happens to be the former superintendent of Santa Barbara Unified. Guess who the principal is? A former assistant superintendent from Lompoc that they brought over to do their bidding until they can find somebody who's woke enough to fill the position. And so the cancer spreads. And it spreads from Santa Barbara into all these other cities in our county.
So we have no say in this?
Well, you do have a say. They don't want you to have a say, but you have to go to the school board meetings and you have to raise, some cane and call out what they're doing. And there's a lot of power in exposing what they're doing. But you have to, it's like 50% of the challenge is bringing awareness to people, and then the other 50% is figuring out how to solve the problem. So, just bringing awareness is very powerful. And so, if you look at a lot of the superintendents from Santa Barbara Unified, there's one in the elementary school in Solvang. There's one in Santa Ynez. There's one, they're spreading through California like a cancer. Every time you hear of a resignation or somebody stepping down, it just means they're going somewhere else because they keep recycling these people. I applied in Santa Ynez. They didn't call me, but they put an interim superintendent there, so that tells me they don't want somebody like me. They want somebody who's going to push their agenda, but they're not telling anybody that. And so that's why the message is so important, that we keep sharing the message so they get that information, because, in Santa Barbara, we kind of had to figure it out, but now we know. So we have to get 2 steps ahead of these people, and that's where our voices are really powerful and important, that we share that information, because if we can start getting 2 steps ahead of them, we're going to take their power away. But we have to, and we don't have media. Santa Barbara News Press shut down. They're making it difficult on us, but we're overcomers. We're not gonna submit to this. We are going to overcome and keep fighting, and God's gonna help us. So when there's a win down in Temecula and Chino Hills, we can follow suit. It's like what you just said. Those things are important. They're setting a tone. They're showing us what's possible, and it gives us hope. It gives us encouragement, and we just have to keep fighting. And every time, we just have to do the little things sometimes. The little things matter. It's like, don't think that the little things that you do don't matter, because they do. And so we just have to keep up that fight. When I ran for school board, there was 10 people that also joined in the fight, and it's like momentum gets created, and we have to keep that momentum going and keep encouraging each other and keep unifying and keep working together as much as we can. It's hard sometimes. We all have different personalities and have different ideas, but I think that's where God helps us to kind of weave those things together and make a difference. Down in Santa Barbara Unified, we have a lot of people that have stepped up. They go to school board meetings. They are writing things for the newspaper. They're speaking at the school board meetings. There was a situation down there where a boy, he was Catholic, and he was very upset at Dos Pueblos High School because they had a picture. It's a piece of art. It's not really art, but it's a picture of something called the Piss Christ that was made 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and the teacher was displaying the Piss Christ in the classroom. And basically it's a picture of Christ on the cross dipped in urine and posted. And he was super passionate about it. He reached out to the Thomas More Foundation, which is some lawyers. They wrote a letter to the school district. The school district agreed to take it down, but then they reneged on the agreement. But a bunch of us showed up at the school board meeting. We spoke to them, and we sort of won, because they didn't decide right away to take it down, but it all of a sudden went viral on Fox News. And when it went viral on Fox News, they ended up taking it down. And so I always say, if we can't sue these people, let's expose them, because exposing Santa Barbara and exposing, they don't like exposure. They want everyone to think, oh, everything is great here, we're the best, all that kind of stuff. So if you can't sue them, we can't expose them. And they really don't like it when that happens. So, but it is a strategy for, make them look bad and make them do the right thing, and that's important. So we have a lot of activists, we have a lot of people doing writing workshops down there, attending school board meetings, and I think, as we generate ideas, and we share them, it gives us courage, it gives us the ability to go out and, it's fun to win these things, it's fun to, get them to take something down when they don't want to, and feel like we're making progress. So those are some of the positive things. I think, all schools are compromised. Even private schools are pretty compromised. I worked at a private school last year, and it's wearing. The environment, the toxic environment that we're in, it's very wearing, and so people, end up giving in instead of sometimes standing their ground. But it is why our voices are important, to help encourage them or call them out. If they're doing the wrong thing, they need to be put on point. And we need to not be shy about it. I mean, I'm a veteran. You don't take criminals down with like petitions and public speaking. Usually you go to war or something like that. And so it is important for us to say hard things to them and to be very strong and direct and demanding. And that's the strategies they use. And they're going to call us names and they're going to try to bully us. But I mean, they tried to bully me a ton during the campaign. And we had to use out-of-the-box thinking, but we did, and we made them look bad. And it's really fun to make them look bad when they do that, But sometimes you have to let it play out. You don't know, like, your total strategy when you go into it, but when you can make them look bad, I mean, there's a League of Women Vipers down there, the League of Women Voters, but they're vipers. And we made them look bad during the campaign. It's like, don't do that to me, because the thing is, when you speak truth, you don't have to defend it. It will defend itself. And so you speak it, and then you let things play out, and you continue to speak it, and you stand your ground, and what you realize is that I don't have to convince anybody. I'm gonna let them make the decision for themselves, because I'm gonna stand on this, and they get to decide. And every time we can turn hearts doing that, we're not gonna turn, some of these people are not gonna turn, so stop talking to them. Talk to the people that will turn and will, come to that awareness. I think we actually have a parenting problem more than we have a CRT, transgender, whatever problem. Parents need to be empowered. They need to realize they're the ones that have the power to make decisions. I hear parents all the time, well, my kid would never let me do that. I'm like, well, guess what? You're the parent. So stop doing what your kid wants and start doing what you need to do as the parent to protect them. I was part of the gender transformation movie by Epic Times. It just came out on June 19th, back in June, and it is a really important movie for parents to see. It's like, this is how they will steal your kids. And there was a woman up in, I think, Palo Alto. They stole her kid from her, and then her daughter ended up committing suicide by train. And it's the untold stories. It's the kids who have gone under the knife, and they're like, why weren't the adults protecting me? And what were the things that should have been done? The phone should have been taken, the kid should have been taken out of school, and the parents should have taken the heat for what the kid, the mad. I took my daughter out of DP her senior year in June because it was having an effect on her. She was super mad at me. But guess what? Too bad. I care for her too much to worry about her being mad. I had to make that decision as the parent. I had to stand in it. I didn't blame her. I just said, I'm sorry that they're robbing your childhood, but I have to protect you from this. And so we can't let the emotions of our children drive us. We have to be the parents, and we have to make those hard decisions and stand our ground. And parents need to be told that, because I hear parents all the time telling me, my kid would never let me do that. It's like, it's not their choice. Their brains are not formed. They don't know. So we have to make those decisions for them. And when you see this movie, there was a mom who lost their daughter, but there was also another lady who saved her daughter. And she saved her daughter because she did the parenting. She took the phone and she took the kid out of school. And so, I think that there is a method for us to, I think you have to do it in a gentle way because you don't want to ostracize your child. But those things are really important. And parents need to see, the more we can educate parents, the more they're going to understand why this is important. So that movie is educational. The Sound of Freedom is educational. The book that Kenny Chu wrote, he does a really good job of describing what CRT does and then what LGBTQ does. And LGBTQ actually is what divides the parents from their children. That's how they can justify taking the children from their parents, is that agenda, where CRT is a little bit more of the brainwashing and the, changing kids' minds about, what is reality. These kids don't have a reality. They're just like little sponges soaking up this information, and they do it. It's very subtle. I've seen the books. They're very subtle. It's not, sometimes you look at it and you're like, this is about chocolate milk. It's not a big deal. But it's the message behind the story that's rewiring their brain, because they're saying to the kid, your opinion is more important than your parents, and you should get to decide. And if your parents come against you, they're bad parents, and that's abuse. And so that's kind of how they rewire children's brains. And when it's happening, in multiple ways, they make a big difference. So that book is really great for parents to read and understand. It's about Santa Barbara, and it's about Loudoun County, Virginia, and it talks about how they have used these agendas in these two different areas. And Kenny does a good job of kind of spelling it out. Kenny's going to be coming to Santa Barbara at the end of September. He'll be speaking down there, and so it's great to hear those testimonies from the people that have been in the trenches. It's really powerful. It equips us with more knowledge that we can share, and knowledge is power. And so I think instead of, I have been teaching up to this point. I'm probably not going to be teaching this next school year. Well, I'm not going to be teaching this next school year, but I'm going to continue to educate as many people as I can, because the education piece is really important. I just want to make clear how powerful it is. Like I said in the beginning, the superintendent of schools is, voted on at a local level. And one superintendent of schools that changes, that pushes back, is enough to make a huge difference, all the way up to, if Gavin runs for president of the United States, it could out a lot of, we have to cut off the funding. The funding is how they keep these things going. And so it is an important message to get out, and we can make a difference on a local level. It doesn't have to be, some big, huge thing that happens. All the things that we do on the local level will either teach other counties or empower people or, take people out of office or whatever it is. And so there's a lot of things that we can do, and working together is key. So we have to keep doing that, and it's exhausting. You have to take breaks, and you have to take care of yourself, and then get another wind, or get other people to join, so that many hands make light work. But it's possible. So that's my encouragement, and I've just, kept at it, and I've taken breaks when I need to, but then I always get re-energized and come back, and you know, and the Lord has me doing a bunch of different weird things, you know, besides just running for office. There's all kinds of things that we can do and get involved in. So it's really
Can
great.
you let them know kind of what you're up to and how you're gonna be leaving for a
Sure.
short while?
Well, I can't get a job in Santa Barbara as a teacher. I've been blackballed in this city. So the doors are closed for me right now. And my daughter wants to go check out Tennessee, and I don't know what's next. But again, sometimes when we walk by faith, we're walking in a fog. We don't know what doors are going to open. But when there's a bunch of doors closed, we have to acknowledge that and make some decisions for ourselves. I'm going to rent out, I have a house down in Santa Barbara. I'm going to rent it out for a year and see, you know, what's next. I've looked at the Daily Wire, like it would be cool to go over there with some of those guys in Tennessee and continue that message. And but we can't lose hope. We have to keep fighting and seeing what doors that God's going to open for us and how He wants to use us. And so that's kind of my next season this next year. But my heart's still in Santa Barbara, and my heart's still for kids. And so I'm always available. People call me and they want advice or they want to know how to handle a situation, and I'm right there like, yep, this is what I think you should do, or I'll write a letter for them, or there's always something. But you know, it's kind of like that story of going to the beach and all the starfish or all the sand dollars are in the sand, you know, and you start picking up one and throwing it back in, and they're like, you're never going to make a difference. I'm all, it makes a difference to this one.
Yeah.
So we just throw as many back as we can and save as many as we can, and the more people we can rally, the more impact we can have. So I believe in that. I believe in it on a small level, you know, all the way up to a big level. And so we just have to keep our hand working hard, and I think, you know, it'll take maybe several years, but it's the long game.
Yeah.
You know, it's a long game. It's hard. So.
Does anybody have any questions for Christy? I mean, she is